Welcome to Resilience and Resolve with Lance Drury.
Welcome to Resilience and Resolve with attorney Lance Drury. For nearly 2 decades, Lance and his team have represented clients against the IRS in some of the most difficult tax disputes. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about the U.S. tax court. Most taxpayers hope they'll never end up there, but if they do, it helps to know what's ahead. Lance is here to break it down in plain, simple English. Lance Drury, sir, how are you?
I'm doing great, Evan. How are you today?
I'm great. I love to see you. I love talking to you. It's one of my favorite parts of the day, getting with my man, Lance Drury. Listen, a lot of people don't even know, the tax court even exists. What exactly is it, and why does it matter?
Well, we go to U.S. tax court most often is when there's a notice of deficiency issued by the IRS. Normally, that's after an audit, and if they want to contest the findings. And one of the major reasons that we go is even if they don't dispute that they owe the tax, generally they will tack on a substantial understatement penalty, meaning they either didn't report all their income or they listed too many expenses. And so you have to go to U.S. tax court in order to get those kicked, because if you don't, then there's a higher standard that you can pursue for reasonable cause if you don't go to U.S. tax court. So it's generally easier. Now, historically, we used to get those understatements penalties kicked as a matter of course. And when you go to U.S. tax court, first you start with IRS appeals. I know you file a petition in tax court, but it goes to IRS appeals first. And if you're not successful there, then it goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I know you don't find this hard to believe, Evan, but those attorneys are a lot more reasonable than those IRS employees.
Yeah.
But now we're finding that they're not necessarily going to kick 100% of the accuracy-related penalty. Now, a lot of times they'll kick 50%, but not more than that.
When does a dispute with the IRS usually move into tax court?
Well, like I said, it's normally after a notice of deficiency. You can do it after a CDP hearing. But the most common that we see is when there's audits done, a letter audit or, our formal field audit. We have the right then, when they file the notice of deficiency, you have 90 days from the date of the notice of deficiency to file in U.S. tax court. And you don't want to miss that deadline, because then it just goes to collection and, it's on the books up until the 90 days has passed and you don't file in U.S. tax court, or after you get to U.S. tax court and get a resolution there, the tax hasn't been assessed yet. So the notice of deficiency is saying, these are our findings. Do you agree with it? If you agree with it, then it's going to pass. They're going to assess the tax, and then you'll go to collections, or you have the right to contest any of their findings in U.S. tax court.
How is the tax court different from civil or criminal court that people might be more familiar with?
Well, I have to tell you, very seldom do we go to court over a U.S. tax court case.
Okay.
And so, normally you just negotiate these out. And that's one of the reasons why I think the U.S. Attorney's Office is more reasonable. They don't want to spend all day in court contesting these matters. IRS appeals, they don't have to worry about it. They're not going to be the ones that have to handle the case if it goes to trial. But the U.S. Attorney's Office does have to worry about that. And I think that's why they're more reasonable. And so it differs in that a lot of this, you never physically step into an actual U.S. tax court. I don't know that I've ever been in a U.S. tax court. I've been in U.S. district court, but I even had a U.S. district court case where they wanted to sell the guy's house because he had fraudulently conveyed it to his wife. He gave it away to her when he had $200,000 in tax debt. And I dealt with the U.S. Attorney's Office out of Washington, D.C., and nobody ever had to go to court in Springfield, Illinois. We worked it all out, filed a stipulation, and got it resolved.
So, Lance, what's the biggest misconception taxpayers have about what happens inside a tax court?
Well, I think most taxpayers, when I bring it up, they think, oh, well, I don't want to go to court. We don't want to do that. And I'll tell them, that's That's not going to happen. 99.9% of the time, we're not going to U.S. tax court inside the actual court. We file the petition and then we negotiate, as I said earlier, first with IRS appeals. And then if we have to and can't get it resolved there, with the U.S. Attorney's Office. But it's all done, paperwork. We'll file stipulations, file them with the judge. He signs off on it. And then if there's still liability, then it goes to collections and we'll work out a resolution in the automated collection system with the IRS.
How important are deadlines and procedure once a case is filed?
Well, you have to proceed. That's the one thing about courts. Courts are not going to wait forever. When you have a deadline, it's a firm deadline. So you better make sure you got your ducks in a row and get that paperwork filed timely, or you're going to lose any rights that you could have by going to U.S. tax court. And you don't want to miss the deadline for U.S. tax court, because once the 90 days is up, you have no right to go to U.S. tax court. There's no recourse.
So, Lance, do taxpayers always need a lawyer in tax court? Can they represent themselves? Is that an ideal situation?
Well, they can, but I don't advise it. I have to tell you, before I got involved with this particular client's case, they claimed to have filed a petition in U.S. tax court, but the tax court never had a record of it. So I asked my clients to go back. I said, do you have a copy of it? No. Did you send it in by certified mail? No. Because anything that's important, we send in by certified mail, because, we need to track these things. The IRS loses stuff all the time. And if they don't lose stuff, the post office does. So we have to have proof that the IRS accepted it. And the other thing is, it's considered filed from the date of the mailing in. It's not when it arrives at the court. So we want to keep all that documentation so we can show them that we did file this timely. There is a 90-day deadline, but a lot of times people come to us at the last minute. We have to prepare this at the last minute, but we want to have proof that it was filed within the time frame, so we have our day in court.
Can you share a situation where tax court changed the outcome of a case for a client? Do you have one of those off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'll just give you one in particular. Is that a lot of times, I had a guy several years ago who hired me to go to U.S. tax court. The IRS claimed that he had all these winnings in the stock market. Well, he had losses too, but those losses didn't get reported to the IRS. So we went back and reconstructed, and I forget how much money they said he owed, 30, 40, 50,000, and we got it all wiped away because we were able to go back to his stockbroker and show not only his winnings, but his losses, and show that his losses exceeded his gains, and therefore he didn't owe any tax at all.
Yeah, he probably couldn't have did that by himself. If he represented himself, he might not be able to do that, huh?
No. And it happens all the time, like on mileage things. We can give them advice that they wouldn't know what to do in order to show the proper documentation that's going to satisfy the IRS or the U.S. Attorney's Office.
What challenges do people face if they try to take on the IRS and tax court without experienced help?
Well, I think we just pointed one of those out. They don't really know what the kind of documentation is that's needed in order to be successful in U.S. tax court. And that's one of the things we ask people when they call us up for an initial consultation and they get this notice of deficiency. We point this out to them. Look, if you don't have the paperwork to refute this, you're not going to be successful in U.S. tax court. However, you may still want us to file a petition to get rid of the accuracy-related penalty. I believe the accuracy-related penalty is 20 to 25% of the raw tax. So let's say they say the tax liability is 50%. That's $10,000 to $12,500 just in the accuracy-related penalty. And so it's worth your while to go to U.S. tax court then just to get that penalty kicked.
And to wrap things up, Lance, for someone listening who just got a notice of deficiency, what practical advice would you give them right now, sir?
You need to call a tax professional. You need to call me right away because you are under a deadline. You're not going to be able to handle this yourself. You're not an attorney. You don't want to go up against the U.S. Attorney's Office on your own. So you do need to hire a seasoned professional. We have more than 1,000 clients at any one time in our office, Evan. That's only going to increase. And so give us a call. And
Awesome.
go to LanceDruryLaw.com.
You better believe it. Lance, sir, appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Evan. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Resilience and Resolve with Lance Drury. For more resources or to connect with Lance, you heard the man. Visit LanceDruryLaw.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone that might find the information helpful as well. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.